Should there be centralized control over powerful AI, or should it be open? Meta just released a 30 billion parameter agent under a license that lets anyone download, change, and sell it, as CEO Mark Zuckerberg called for the goal of making superintelligence openly available to everyone. Proprietary frontier labs remain ahead, but that gap is closing, and once equally capable open weights are released, those weights cannot be called back. Now here's the claim I'll stand behind. Superintelligence, once here, will follow that same pattern, and once that intelligence is open to everyone, no single person or institution can control it. Now that's today's lead. Also in today's episode, Wall Street uses compute as collateral, OpenAI limits its cyber model to vetted users only, researchers count AI's hidden carbon cost, and China's robot lead runs into new US restrictions. Come with me, let's get into it. People who will never sign enterprise contracts are increasingly able to run AI agents on their own computers. And the next step in that evolution is Meta's new release of Muse Glimmer. So now that Meta has released that, how much control do they still have over that model? Very little, and that's kind of the point. Muse Glimmer is a 30 billion parameter model from Meta Superintelligence Labs, and it fits in under 20 gigabytes and runs on one consumer GPU. A Mac or a PC with 24 or 32 gigabytes of memory can load and run a quantized version. Meta released the model under Apache 2.0. That license lets anyone download the weights, change them, deploy them, or even build commercial services around them. There's no access review. There's no enterprise gate. Once the files spread, Meta can't meter them or pull them back. And this model can act. It is an agentic model, so it can work through the several steps and use the outside tools, recover when something fails, keep going. It can also work with images and other inputs. Meta trained it across more than 100 different languages. Muse Glimmer came from the larger Muse Spark model. Meta trained the smaller system to imitate the larger one, and then compressed the numbers that hold what it learned. So think of it as packing an entire workshop into a single suitcase. The tools still work, they just take up far less room. It connects directly to OpenClaw and to other systems that help agents carry out tasks. Anyone can get it from Hugging Face right now and start building. That release arrived beside a roughly 6,000-word essay from CEO Mark Zuckerberg called "The Future is for Everyone." It uses the word superintelligence 60 different times. Zuckerberg argued that no single AI could match the conflicting values of 8 billion people. Meta's preferred answer, then, is a world of many personal, decentralized models. And there is real substance in that point. When intelligence spreads across millions of devices, there's more individual agency and control than when a few corporate accounts ration it and make gating decisions for everyone else. Now, the rest of the essay does serve Meta's interests quite a bit more neatly. It argues for things like minimal regulation, warns that oversight could let China win, and presents Meta as the American answer to Alibaba, Moonshot, or DeepSeek. Ars Technica's account places that pitch against Meta's position behind OpenAI and Anthropic, who are both at the frontier. Openness gives Meta a lane where principle and competitive need happen to overlap. The essay also moves quickly past job loss, surveillance, and autonomous weapons, of course. And then it folds in promises about data centers as well. Meta said that it will restore more water than its facilities consume by 2030, generating energy where it builds and creating high-paying trades jobs. And it pointed to $50,000 bonuses for Louisiana teachers funded by data center sales tax revenue. Now, those promises come from the company asking communities to accept the construction in the first place. They need outside measurement, of course, especially when the same essay brushes aside calls for data center moratoriums. But the weights of the open model don't depend on this essay winning anyone over. Muse Glimmer is already downloadable. Tonight, someone can put a multilingual tool-using agent on a personal computer and build without asking Meta for permission. Now, Meta may have released it to find a competitive lane, but the capability does still land with the person who downloaded the file, and that is the trend we are continuing to see. And that's the part that no manifesto, whether from Meta or from Anthropic, could reverse. Once the models are open, they are available to everyone, and again, we are seeing that trend continue and grow. All right, so from a model that needs one GPU to an industry that is trying to finance millions of them, pensions and insurance funds may soon carry AI exposure that their owners never chose. So what exactly is Nvidia building with Wall Street? A mortgage market for compute. On Monday, Nvidia signed non-binding agreements with Apollo, Blackstone, BlackRock, Brookfield, Goldman Sachs, and KKR. The goal is to mobilize more than $500 billion in outside capital, for AI infrastructure. Now, the mechanism itself is more important than that headline number here. A data center operator could borrow against a GPU cluster's future income, much as a developer now borrows against an apartment building or a toll road. Customers rent the compute. Lenders count on that stream to then repay the debt later. Nvidia chief Jensen Huang put it plainly, in AI, compute is revenue. BlackRock's Larry Fink called compute a mission-critical asset class, and Blackstone's John Gray and Goldman Sachs chief David Solomon echoed the same idea. Everyone in that group benefits if investors accept the premise. Nvidia sells more chips. The money managers collect fees for creating and managing hundreds of billions in new credit. Their agreement does not prove, though, that demand will remain steady or that today's GPUs will actually hold their value. And the leverage also doesn't just disappear, it moves. Some of it sits in separate financing vehicles instead of an AI company's own books. Institutional credit, insurance money, and private equity funds can then spread the exposure across pensions and policyholders. Earlier this summer, Nikkei Asia estimated that off-balance sheet obligations flagged in this build-out reached $1.65 trillion. Now, that is a real concentration of risk, even though it's being sold as diversification. That means that thousands of institutions are holding pieces of the same wager, that customers will keep renting vast amounts of compute at prices high enough to service the debt. And yet still, this money pipe does open a door. A regional operator, national lab, or a sovereign fund no longer needs a trillion-dollar corporate treasury to build serious capacity. It can finance the hardware against future use. Now, the arrangement was designed by incumbents who expect to profit from it, yet the same structure lowers the cash barrier for challengers. Compute is becoming something more institutions can build, finance, and own. The open question then is whether this increases capacity before the shared debt must be repaid. All right, from lenders deciding who can finance compute to OpenAI deciding who may use its sharpest cyber model. Ordinary users are already running agents that can alter other people's lives. So does a restricted release solve that problem? Only partly. The gate may buy defenders some time while leaving the wider accountability gap untouched. On Monday, OpenAI divided its Daybreak cyber service into blue and red tiers. The blue tier gives approved customers limited access to their frontier cyber models for incident response, malware analysis, and checking whether patches actually work. OpenAI described it as the starting point. Red adds GPT 5.6 Cyber, built on GPT 5.6 Sol. It can support offensive testing, vulnerability research, and checking whether an exploit actually works. That tier goes to a very short list of trusted partners. The initial reporting shows Accenture, IBM, CrowdStrike, and Cloudflare will receive it. Now, the cautious case is, of course, straightforward. A system that can find and validate software flaws can help defenders close them. It can also help attackers use them. So keeping the most capable version exclusively inside organizations that can afford top-notch security teams and legal accountability does give those defenders a head start. It also, of course, gives well-connected firms the advantage first. OpenAI gets to sell both the capable models and the metered access to the defense. The company calls the gate responsible access while also benefiting from its role as gatekeeper. Now, a tiny incident in Australia does show why the question cannot be reduced to who just gets OpenAI's model. A man named Andrew asked an AI assistant to book a gym class. The assistant used OpenClaw with Anthropic's Claude underneath. It found a flaw in the booking software, reserved a place months ahead, removed another person from the waitlist without being asked, and then couldn't undo what it had done. Now, nothing was stolen and no one was hurt. Its small scale makes the failure unusually clear here. The agent received a pretty normal benign task, found and took an unauthorized path to achieve the goal, and then took actions that negatively impacted a stranger and was unable to reverse. It was described as Australia's first known autonomous cyber incident. Now, the jobs these systems can finish without help have been getting longer at a startling rate. On Meter's software task benchmark, researchers estimate that span has doubled about every 7 months, moving from a 4-second task back in 2020 to work lasting half a day or even more, as we're seeing now. OpenClaw is already reaching millions of downloads. Software can't answer a lawsuit or compensate someone that it harms, and for that reason, a person or an institution eventually carries the responsibility. But no one has agreed who is responsible. Is it the model developer, the agent platform, the service deploying it, or the user who gave the original instruction? and OpenAI's gate protects a narrower lead than its structure suggests. Independent evaluations place the downloadable GLM 5.2 near Anthropic's gated Mythos on the same bug finding and cyber tasks, so the capability is already moving outside these trusted partner lists. The better move then would be to broaden access while keeping clear observation, reversal, and responsibility in place. A door that admits 4 large firms cannot govern millions of agents already walking around the building. All right, moving from software finding routes through computer systems over to AI finding routes through oil fields. Communities living with climate change have carried emissions that never appeared on any lab's ledger. So where is AI's largest power sector footprint? According to a new Nature study, it is downstream of the data center. Researchers modeled 64 ways that AI could affect the whole power sector. They counted gains in renewable energy alongside gains in coal, oil, and gas. The result was not a single forecast, but a range. AI-assisted fossil production could add roughly half a gigaton to 1.8 gigatons of carbon dioxide each year beyond what AI applications in renewable power avoid. Now, a gigaton is 1 billion metric tons. Net emissions fell only in scenarios where AI produced no fossil fuel productivity gain at all. So think of AI as an accelerant pointed at 2 different cost curves. It can help a wind farm predict output and run more efficiently. It can also help an oil company find a deposit, lower the cost of drilling, and turn a marginal project into a profitable one. The capability speeds up both, whichever system pays to use it. Now, right now, fossil applications are much farther into commercial deployment. The International Energy Agency estimates that AI could increase recoverable oil and gas by 5% and cut deepwater project costs by 10%. Equinor has credited AI-assisted seismic work with 27 discoveries. Saudi Aramco says that AI is embedded in everything. Renewable applications remain mostly pilots and research models. Now, to break even, the study found that AI's productivity gains in renewables would need to beat its gains in fossil fuels by about 4 to 1. Now, that number provides a target, one that is achievable if prioritized. That ratio describes where contracts and deployment sit now. Physics didn't write that. And the researchers called their result a directional and structural finding, not a precise forecast. So the modeled range equals roughly 1 to 5% of annual energy sector emissions. That's also at least 3 times larger than current estimates for emissions from running the data centers themselves. For 2 years, much of the public argument has been focused on rack power and cooling. Those costs do matter, especially where one campus strains a local grid or local water supply. But this study counts something larger: what customers can extract because AI made the work cheaper or faster. Now, co-author Holly Alpine, formerly of Microsoft, had pushed the company internally to count these enabled emissions. They happen inside the customer's operations, which lets the AI provider leave them outside its own climate account. Now, this finding doesn't make AI the climate adversary. It shows that fossil industries have deployed the capability faster and at greater scale. And now that the gap has a number, renewable developers, researchers, and the public can track whether it closes. The 4 to 1 imbalance can move. Measurement gives us the first clear mark to move it against. All right, moving from counting which energy systems powers AI to counting which factories are allowed to build AI robots. Robot makers outside China are staring at a manufacturing lead almost nobody expected would materialize this quickly. How large is that lead? Chinese companies accounted for more than 97% of global humanoid robot shipments during the first half of 2026, according to Smart Analytics. Smart Analytics Global counted roughly 19,100 shipments. A year earlier, the comparable figure was about 5,100. That is a tripling in just 12 months. The firm projects around 60,000 units for the full year and 500,000 by 2030. Humanoids were lab demonstrations just a few years ago, but they are becoming a clear industrial product. China's manufacturing base is doing what it has done in other sectors, linking suppliers, factories, engineering talent, and customers until each production run makes the next one easier. Washington's answer has just been a wider wall. Ahead of a planned leader summit, the United States added humanoid robots, four-legged robots, and robotic mowers to its list of banned Chinese technologies. And it's also preparing to block Chinese connected power inverters, which are the devices that connect solar panels and batteries to the grid. A separate debate could restrict Chinese AI models after the strong showing from Kimi K3. Beijing has, of course, vowed to retaliate. Treasury described the American posture as escalate to de-escalate. Both governments present these moves as national security. Both also have economic pressure sitting underneath that language. China carries debt above 300% of gross domestic product, while growth sits near flat. The United States is reacting to a manufacturing lead in a category that it expected to help define. By restricting trade, these countries are trying to limit how much they depend on connected equipment and reducing certain security risks. But they also split the robotics world into separate supply chains, model ecosystems, and technical standards. That brings duplicated costs and slower exchange. But it does produce one useful kind of redundancy too. Two full robotic stacks developing in parallel does make it harder for one national champion or regulator or platform to set the global default. So Washington can restrict imports, Beijing can retaliate, but neither can make the other manufacturing base forget how to build. The embodied intelligence frontier now has more than one center, and both sides keep advancing their capability. But I think it's pretty clear that right now, China's ahead on this one. All right, closing for today. As of now, who mostly controls AI capabilities? The answer is different depending on which layer you're looking at, but it's clearly moving toward there being no centralized control at all. The floor is rising for everyone, and that's a good thing. Meta created Muse Glimmer, but the person downloading its weights holds the actual working model. Nvidia and Wall Street are building the credit pipes for compute, yet those pipes can also reach institutions without giant cash reserves. OpenAI does control access to GPT 5.6 Cyber, of course, but it doesn't control the comparable open models that are starting to grow and spread outside its list, or the consumer agents that are already acting on live systems. Fossil companies currently hold much of AI's energy advantage because they've developed it at commercial scale. The Nature study, though, shines a light on that imbalance, giving renewable deployment an actual target number to beat. And China holds almost the entire humanoid shipment market today, but it doesn't hold the only robotic stack, and American bans cannot turn manufacturing knowledge back into a secret. But that's the pattern across the day. Institutions keep trying to control access, who gets funded, who gets collateral, who counts as an approved customer, which country counts as safe or even valid. Those choices have an impact. The risk of harm is greater when access remains uneven, risk remains hidden, and responsibility remains unsettled. But capability keeps moving past that original holder. It does not care about all these geopolitically motivated choices. The clearest image is still that 30 billion parameter agent running on someone's personal computer right now, tonight. No access review, no corporate meter, no way for the company that released it to call every copy home. The frontier is spreading into more hands, and our work then is to make sure those hands can continue to build, to check one another, reverse mistakes, and equally share the gains. See you tomorrow.